Welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalfas. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Millionaire Show. We're here, just Nick and I, doing our year-end 2022 year-end podcast. Nick, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How about you?
Oh, after this weekend, I'm better. But as you know, we'll get into this today. It was a tough weekend for people with rental properties on the East Coast.
Very. And those cold weather, that cold weather we had is kind of like a record-breaking low. I mean, the feel like temperature was like -8, -9 degrees, and we don't typically have cold weather like that.
Yeah, but it definitely kind of pointed out all the problems that we have, like, you know, certain buildings that just aren't quite insulated that well, that we need to get some extra heaters in there when the temperatures drop. You know, we put some of those radiator heaters in some of these multifamily buildings that we have, and it just wasn't enough to keep up with the cold. And man, it was just a brutal weekend of flooded basements and pipes bursting and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, very busy.
So we're going to talk about a bunch of things. Our list here is a little bit disorganized. It's like kind of all over the place because we both just kind of threw it down there, but we'll kind of go one by one. So I thought one thing to talk about, because we're going to talk about how I think both of us kind of didn't reach all of our goals that we set for last year, but things that we are like proud of that happened that were good this year. And then we could talk about the goals that we didn't hit and how we're going to change those for next year. Yep. So I guess what are some things that went well this year, Nick, for you and your business?
I would say a big thing was consistency. I think I mentioned before in another episode, just staying consistent and how I've remained consistent from last year and heading into the end of this year. And I would be happy if I remained consistent going into 2023. You know, and as far as my consistency is, you know, buying the same number of rental properties that I bought last year into this year, and hopefully following that into 2023. And I hope that there's better buying opportunities. We all know that the market has come down and we don't know where it's going to go heading into 2023, but we can kind of see that houses are sitting longer on the market, which may cause housing pricing for investors to, you know, come down so that we have better buying and hold opportunities.
Yeah. So do you have any kind of backup plan? Because if the market like doesn't go according to plan, the rates don't come down, we can't make as many deals make sense. Do you want to change your goal to say like, you know, instead of buying 30 or 40 or 50 houses this year, maybe buy 10 or 20 and do something else with your money? Or are you going to just stick with the plan and try to stick it out?
Yeah, I'm going to try to stick with the plan. I mean, at this point, because I know what I did last year, what I improved on this year and kept things consistent as far as the unit count, I can still do the same number as I did this year into next year and still have time to focus on if I wanted to build, you know, maybe another business or maybe dive into, you know, larger multifamily deals. And I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into that just yet. I've had in the past, but once I really dial it in, I can, you know, pursue that. But for the time being, I think just remaining consistent, tightening up my systems within, you know, the rental portfolio that I have now to make my net income increase would be one of my goals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the same situation we were talking about, and we'll talk a little bit more about like accounting and how to properly do your accounting and who should be doing it and stuff like that. And I think one thing that you know, we found out this year in our business is that, you know, we had QuickBooks and we had transactions going through our credit cards and into QuickBooks and this and that. But when it came down to it, you know, QuickBooks is a lot more than what we were using it for, and we had a lot of money and not missing transactions, but transactions that we had that we kind of didn't have an explanation for. And when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of transactions or millions of dollars of transactions, you know, those little things, if you just miss 10% of it, it could be tens of thousands or more in losses, direct losses to the business. So one thing that I think that I'm proud of now is that we've come up with systems going into 23 because we scaled like way too fast. Like that was a big problem that we had over the pandemic. And then just the property management company kept doubling. And then, you know, you have so many different things going on that accounting just goes to the wayside because you're just worried about collecting money, paying people that need to pay, collecting more money. So one thing that, I'm proud of now that going into 23, we have systems in place for every single transaction that happens within our company now goes through one person. So if it's a credit card transaction, it's a check, it's a direct deposit, whatever, every single transaction goes through one person. So they have a place to put it
Mm-hmm.
in QuickBooks. And it's a whole job. Like it's somebody's job that you have to pay somebody to do. But when you have it that way, you're going to find, and I was telling you before, and I guess now would be a good time, the QuickBooks fees, like just fees to process payments. I was under the impression that they were $10, and I had not checked or like reconciled my own books in a while, and then come to realize that QuickBooks had switched, so it was 1% for instant payouts. And I didn't even realize that I had either clicked it or my assistant clicked it or somebody clicked it. And then I had found that they charged me 1% of a lot of money, like seven figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost tens of thousands of dollars in just transaction fees that if I had somebody doing those, it would have never happened that way.
Yeah. So is that specifically for, you said instant, in order for somebody to, I guess is it for when they pay it for you to get the money instantly?
Yeah. So basically, QuickBooks right now, and how it always was I send them a direct deposit link. They pay with their bank account. They're routing an account number like an ACH. And then it takes, 2 days or 3 days sometimes to clear into my bank account. Well, QuickBooks had, I guess, last year come up with this instant funding thing where it was as soon as the invoice is paid, it goes into the bank account and QuickBooks just sends the money before even like verifying it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, or there was in the fine print or whatever, I missed it, that they had charged 1% for any money that was instant payout. And it was seven figures. It was a lot of money that we had not even realized that it
Mm-hmm.
was being charged 1%. When your profit margin's only 12, 15% net, 1% is a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, moving forward, I would suggest charging that to the customer.
Well, now
Maybe.
how I have it set is it's only $10 now. So I just took off that instant payout.
Okay. So that
And
was the
now,
only thing that you needed to
so,
do.
so now my deal is it's 1% up to a maximum of a $10 charge. So
Mm-hmm.
if they put in, $1,000, it charges me, $10.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was $100, like $100,000, it's only $10. So not that bad.
Yeah.
But so we basically had talked last year about goals, and I know that I did not necessarily hit all my goals that I set. But I wanted to like say a couple things that we were proud of that we did this year. One, for us, we've done some like massive projects that are really cool to see come together, framing out 4-unit buildings and such. But going to the bad side, what are some goals that you didn't hit from last year?
One of the big ones that we mentioned before was I wanted to get to 100 units. Didn't quite get there. I'm still at 68 units. And another thing that we're going to talk about here shortly is, the reason why I'm still at 68 because of the Baltimore City lien certificates taking a while to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the biggest one that I didn't hit. Other goals, maybe that I'm still working on are, dialing in my systems,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that, all the systems are in place to make more money at the end of the day. I would go and let tenants not pay rent and not really do anything when I was new to the game because I didn't know what to do. Now it's like, if a tenant doesn't pay rent, they get the failure to pay, and then the court date will come. I'll try to get them help with eviction prevention programs, and if that doesn't come through, they have to go at the eviction date. Or if the program does come through, I do give them a second chance to
Mm-hmm.
get back on track once the program funds, and hopefully that can give them a clean slate moving forward.
Yeah, that for us, I know that we had a revenue goal that we missed slightly, and I think honestly part of it was that market slowdown at the end of the year. I was kind of expecting it to be just firing for all year long, and people kept buying, but I think a lot of investors slowed down on purchasing. We did purchase a couple homes, but not as many as I had hoped, and part of that was like seeing where the market was. I thought maybe hold off on purchasing, towards the end of the year and see what 2023 brings. Not that that's a good excuse because we should have bought more. But I think we definitely like to use our active income to purchase these passive investments. And since we didn't hit our revenue goal, I thought, we probably shouldn't be purchasing all of those, all those properties until we have a better handle on what's going to happen with these rates and stuff like that. I just, for the Burr deals, and everybody's like always talking about Burr deals. It's really, really hard to do a Burr deal right now and not have any money stuck in the deal after.
Yeah, I mean, especially with high interest rates, lower LTVs. Once you go to refinance the properties, it definitely is tough. Sellers are still looking to get somewhat top dollar still for their properties. Wholesalers have fees that they tack on top, and some of the deals just don't make sense in today's market.
Yeah. Yep. So let's talk about next. So we talked about our goals for next year, and different things that we're going to do to hit them already in another podcast. But kind of now that we're at the end of the year, we can kind of lay out some of those goals and some of the strategies that we have. So one of my big goals next year is to do $10 million in construction, and that's right now over double what we did this year. And I think a big part of this coming year for me is going to be marketing. And I think that's what going to be one of my goals is just to really dedicate money and real money to marketing, both, doing through social media, through Google, direct mail, stuff like that. And I don't know how much it is. I want to talk to Tyler about budgets and stuff, but before the first of the year, I'm going to set like a monthly marketing budget for our construction and property management business. And then as well as growing the real estate sales team. I just sold that $1 million house in Annapolis.
Oh, nice.
We just closed on
Yeah.
that. So that one's off the books, but getting that house sold, I was like, damn, I got to be doing this more. So it was just, too easy. Thanks to Marcus and the team for helping with the transaction and everything like that. But I know that there's going to be an opportunity, when this market comes down, there's opportunity in that. And I think being on the sales and investor side is going to be helpful.
So when you do start putting more money into marketing, are you going to kind of like market both in the same, marketing campaign, for example, like your construction and the property management
Yeah.
businesses?
So it's a good question. And I'd like to hear people's feedback about this, but the problem that I have is that like we kind of built a brand with PE Property Management, which is it is a property management company, but it's more than that. It's the construction part way outdoes the management part as far as revenue goes. It's about 4 times the amount. Um, so I think it's kind of tough to dedicate the same amount of money to both things when one does so much more. The other thing is that about my branding, the name of the company has property management in it. So I think a lot of people kind of discount the fact that we are builders and, but I don't know about rebranding because it was so much work to do all the things that we were already doing with PE property management with the logos and the marketing and all that stuff that to like change the name to like PE home builders or something like that
Yeah.
just seems like
So I just
crazy.
because I was thinking like if you're trying to advertise or market for your construction business and someone sees PE property management, they're just going to automatically assume that you're just maybe just a property management company unless you have like a description. But just from
Yeah.
like the
And our
name,
logo has the description like general contracting and real estate investing.
Mhm.
But again, the first thing people see is that name. So I don't know. What do you think? Do I have to rebrand?
I mean I don't think you have to rebrand. Just you can have like PE property management and just have like PE construction and not keep it the same as far as however your LLC is set up.
Yeah. I don't know. That's something that's on my list to talk about is like how much money do we put into marketing for each business? What kind of, campaigns do we want to do? I'm trying to do focused campaigns. So like for the property management, I mean for the construction company, I love springtime doing decks. Like a lot of people are trying to get their decks done, and decks are super profitable for us because we have great carpenters in house that bang they're done with the deck in a couple days, and the margins are super high. So I'm going to do just a campaign that just focuses on decks, just
Mhm.
getting, pictures of decks we've done, boosting posts on Facebook, doing whatever. So I've been watching some videos and trying to figure out, different creative ways to market better, but that's on my list.
Yeah, or just PE property construction when you're marketing for construction, and then PE property management when when you're marketing for, more property management.
Yeah, I might end up getting like a DBA, like a doing business as name, and
Mhm.
then be able to kind of market two names. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's one thing that I think I have to do to double our revenue is we have to market more. We have
Yeah,
to get in like organic leads from people that are not just calling us because they know somebody that used us.
exactly.
So, all right. So, yeah, so the frozen pipe scenario and service calls on Christmas and Christmas Eve this year. I know we both have a couple of stories about that. So, of course, here in Maryland, for anybody that wasn't listening, we had the coldest couple of days right over Christmas, the day before Christmas Eve, and Christmas were three just like
Well,
brutally cold
I think
days.
anyone in the United States, it was cold in almost
Yeah, Florida,
even
I mean, it was
Florida went
like
down to
30 degrees.
yeah, pretty cold down there. So like
Um,
everybody experienced it, but we had, below freezing, below
below
net
zero.
zero temperatures.
Yeah. So the situations that we had were people that were not either not there to open their faucets a little bit and let let water flow through, or it was just basements that just got so cold that they literally pipes just started bursting everywhere. And I'll just tell one quick story. And the one house that we have next door to that house, um, their pipes burst and the people weren't home. And up until today, it was flowing water from
Mm.
before Christmas Eve. And so today they found 2 feet of water in the basement next door. And the way that I found out was that my tenants called and sent me pictures of about 8 inches of water in their basement.
Mm.
And there was so much water in the basement next door that it literally seeped through the walls and filled up this basement. And then the lady next door to them had inches of water in her basement.
Mm.
So I have, all this stuff. They have all this stuff down there. We have to get insurance involved. And yeah, we had that multifamily buildings that were filling with water. Nobody had 9 units without water, people without heat. I mean, it was a nightmare.
And how long did that take to get that 9 unit back up and running?
Today, they literally turned on all of the water today at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So it was luckily we had two buildings running. So I was letting the one, we had a vacant unit in one of the buildings. This was like a little creative. And I was kind of using the one unit in the building that was working so the people can use the bathroom and take showers.
Hmm.
And they were just using that vacant unit as like a extra bathroom that was working.
So was it the main line, water line that was coming into the house that
Yeah.
exploded?
So yeah, the one in the middle, there's three buildings, the one in the middle and the one on the right, the main line broke. And then the one on the left, which was today, that's the one that took forever. There was apparently like every time that they fixed one leak and they turned the water back on, like another place just
Mhm.
started breaking. And then it was so bad it was over the joists and through like a brick wall, like a partition wall. So they just said it was a nightmare to fix, and every time they tried to fix it, they just broke it. So I broke another place. So
Yeah.
that was not fun.
So luckily, I only had one bursted pipe, and it was at one of um my worker's house that he rents from me. So like he was able to fix it. Um, the other calls that I got 7 no heat calls. They were all but one were on Christmas Eve, and the other one was the day before Christmas Eve. And it was just my I called a lot of HVAC guys. The one guy I used for a lot of service calls, he was actually going to the Ravens game, but he was able to help me out with a couple of them. And it was so cool because he was like, "I'm supposed to meet my buddy at the Ravens game. I can go take care of one, but you may just keep looking around to see if you can find someone to do the other ones." And then like 15 after he was done the first one, like 15 minutes later, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, I'm heading to that next address." I'm like, "Awesome." So now I got like one more to worry about. It was like one or two. And then he texted me again after he got done that one. He's like, "Hey, I'm heading to the other one." So I'm like, "Great." So he was able to knock most of them out. And then it's a really tough situation. Christmas Eve, and a lot of your tenants don't have heat. Like you feel so bad. Like I'm the day before Christmas Eve on that first call, like I was out with a couple friends, like having a drink, and I'm like, man, I gotta like make sure I take care of this quickly, because that's when it was those negative feel like temperatures, and it was just a bad few days here in Baltimore.
Yeah, yo, that was my biggest thing is just feeling bad, feeling bad for people that are sitting in houses that I own or I manage and they don't have heat. Like that weighs on me. And my wife says, "Oh, you can't fix everything, blah blah blah. You can't control this." But I'm like, "Yes, but you still feel bad. It's
Yeah,
still it's
it's
still a
like they
feeling."
rely on you,
Right.
similar to like how our employees rely on us for work. That's how I kind of look at it. Like if I don't have work for my employees, like they're kind of out a paycheck, and so I feel just as bad when a tenant texts me and says, "Hey, I don't have any heat," because they're relying on us to fix the problem.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. And you definitely want to get everything done right away. But it's funny. I don't want to say the name, but there's another property management company that you and I both know. The house that's next door to the one that's all flooded. They the tenants that lived in that house, they all the electric went out, all the water heater, the heater, everything that went out at their. They called their property management company and they said they wouldn't be able to get there for a couple of days. And
Wow.
there's like water just like filling up in their basement. They said a couple of days. I was like, that's not okay. Like we
Mhm.
do, like if there's water literally pouring out, like I'm gonna go there myself and turn
Mhm.
that thing off, at the very least. And I think also like, we had a bunch of heaters and we bought a bunch of extra heaters, like having those in stock, like a bunch of extra radiator heaters that you can go drop off at people's houses to keep them
Yeah,
warm.
so I fell short on that. I went on Amazon, I think I bought 5, like, space heaters,
Hmm.
and I already gave them all out, and this was before this cold event. So, like, now I need to, like, get some more because I have a tenant now just another tenant just texted me yesterday. It's a 2-unit building, and her unit is baseboard heat, electric baseboard,
Hmm.
and she said it's just not keeping it warm, and I said, "Did it just start happening when it was this cold?" She said, "Yes." So they're still working, but it's
They
just
just can't
not
keep up.
keeping up. So I don't know if it's like, well, I asked the HVAC guy. He said it's probably best to send the electrician out there, but I might just get her, a couple heaters. That way, in the
Yeah.
meantime, she's nice and warm.
The radiator style heaters are the safest ones that don't like go on fire as easy. That's so
Hmm.
we probably have 10 of them now. And but the trick is you got to go get them after whatever's fixed. So then you have them in your storage. Cause
Yeah,
if you have them all over the place at different houses, then they're kind of screwed. Cause we had that situation where we had three, heaters at a house that the heat was fixed. So then we had to go to that house, pick up the heaters, and then
yeah.
drop it off at another house.
Well, I kind of just because there's some houses where ductworks ran. Maybe it's colder. Well, most of the time it's colder in the basement. Maybe there's not enough vents, or they're just not keeping the vents, and or maybe the thermostat is on a floor where it reads that temperature, but, like, at a lower level, it's colder. So, like, those heaters, those 5 that I just let them have, like, certain
Mhm.
tenants just so, like, if they have a colder room in the house that they have, a heater they can turn on if they have to.
Yeah. So what we got next? Oh, one thing that I did want to say is that we have a meetup coming up soon, and I want everybody that's in the DMV area to be at that meetup. And I'm going to tell you in just a second when I find it on my calendar.
January 26th.
January
It's a
26th
Thursday. It is at Riptide in Fells Point,
at 6 p.m., 6 to 9
6 to 9.
on Thursday,
It's
the
a great
26th.
time. We had one so far, and it was a great turnout. A lot of people showed up. Um, we were able to make quick little interviews there.
Yeah, we got some
Um,
content. It was cool.
it's a great time.
So yeah, 26th, Riptide, Fells Point. Be there, be square. All right, next we have lean certs in Baltimore City. That sucks. I'm in. Marcus and I are waiting on commission on a property now that they just keep pushing it back, and the client is in California, and she doesn't like fully understand that how crazy Baltimore City
Mhm.
is with some of this stuff. But yeah, so lien certs, for those of you that don't know, is basically the city has to look up to see if there's any liens on the property before either refinancing or selling, to make sure that they don't have to make the city whole on any kind of bills that may be missing. In Baltimore City right now, they're so backed up for whatever reason. I literally have no idea why. Just people are not working or
So
whatever.
from what I understand, they lost their main guy who used to like push out these lien certificates like crazy, but I don't understand how losing one guy, he just retired, so they had to fill his spot, but I don't understand how, like, just from one guy retiring, is it really causing I don't understand why it's causing such disruption in the Baltimore City lien certificate department.
Well, these things are now backed up months.
Mhm.
So you can try to buy a house with a 30-day close, which is typical. And God forbid you're an investor, you want to do a 7-day close. But if you do want to do a 30-day close, and right now it's probably going to be 60 days just to get your lien cert. And it's crazy because like city officials are just watching this happen, and it's just crushing the real estate market in Baltimore, temporarily, but people are trying to close on these houses, especially it's the year end. So a lot of people are trying to close and get money off the books or whatever,
Mhm.
and they just can't produce lien certs. It's like absolutely absurd. Um, I don't even know. I don't even know how to explain it to people.
Yeah.
Like,
So I have typically lien certificates used to take about 21 days to get in, and then they can review them and then you can close maybe 2 or 3 days later or the next day. And now I have 7 properties under contract that were all scheduled to close before the end of the year, and I just got word today that only 3 of those lien certificates have come in, and we're gonna close on those 3 on Thursday. So it's been 2 months to get those 3 in, so from the time I got those 3 under contract to that 4th one, it's probably 2 more weeks, so I'm probably another 2 or 3 weeks out before the other ones close or maybe heading in towards the end of, January.
yeah, that is something that Baltimore City has to get together. Not good. So, what do you have? You had one of your guys stuck in Texas,
Yeah, so
apparently?
one of my guys, he was supposed to return today, actually. He had a flight home today. He was gonna get back to work tomorrow. He sends me a screenshot yesterday of his canceled flight, and the earliest flight he can get on is on Thursday now to come back home. And this is across the board. Like right now, right now after Christmas, we're doing this podcast, and a lot of people are experiencing delays. Like I've seen a lot of people post on Facebook about it. Um, and it's been crazy for people traveling right now, and they say it's
Yeah.
because of the cold weather, so
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of places that I guess aren't ready to have that much cold or that cold of temperatures that probably
mhm.
had to ground all their flights because of ice and all that kind of good stuff. Hopefully, it doesn't happen for us in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We are going to Hawaii at the end of January. We're going to interview Brandon Turner on the podcast. We're actually staying at his Airbnb that I guess he lives. It's like a multi-unit, I guess, and he lives there with.
I think it's a condo that he owns there. I don't know a lot about where he lives there. I don't know if it's in the same development or if it's somewhere else, but I know he owns his condo, and I did ask the guy who helped me, get the place together for us, about the condo, and he said it was like a two-bedroom condo, but they actually split it into 2 Airbnb units, there, and he said they're about $1,000,000 a piece if you wanted to
Wow,
buy one there.
wow, that is a lot. I guess that's the cost of living in paradise in Hawaii.
Yeah. Yep. I'm
Well,
excited to go. I never been.
yeah, I've been to Maui once when I was like graduating college, and it was a great time. We booked a so for this trip we booked a charter. We're gonna do some deep sea fishing. We're gonna do the road to Hana. There's like all sorts of fun stuff that we could do. We rented motorcycles or scooters and zipped around the island that way. It's good stuff.
Nice.
Um, so the recent appraisals, I'm actually having this issue a little bit right now, like running comps on these investment properties that they're just a little bit too far out to really
Mhm.
comp because now the rates are up, where they're at for investors. I just got quoted like 7.5, which is, right where we've been for a couple months. But, comps that sold 5, 6 months ago are not comps anymore.
Mhm.
Where they used to be, 6 months used to be a good, range to go with investment properties or to figure out, how much they're
Yeah.
worth, but to get your refi done. And we are, really struggling to find those comps that make sense.
Yeah, 'cause 6 months ago, there were it seemed like endless amounts of comps out there, whereas now houses are sitting longer, less houses are selling, and, certain appraisers, they only wanna go back 3 months, and there's not a whole lot of inventory that's sold within the last 3 months, compared to what was selling 6 to 12 months ago, so It's tough. And this, obviously, if we have a number in our head, like we could have bought that house 6 months ago when the comps were, let's say, 200,000. But now that nothing's selling 6 months later, it could be harder. Like your ARV could be less, which could, ruin your refinance. Where if it comes in at 180,000, you might have to bring money to the table to
Yeah,
close out that
I think
refinance.
that's something for new investors to really keep an eye on. People that don't have a ton of extra money sitting around. When you go to refinance a property, you don't you might have to come up with money. And sometimes it's could be a lot. So depending if, the market keeps dropping and you do a project, let's say you're doing a bird deal, it takes 3 months to do. And by the time that 3 months is over, we see another point or so of increase and the values drop a little bit. You might get 10, 20, 30, $40,000 stuck in a deal depending on the size deal you're doing, and you got to be prepared for that because you can get done with your deal and technically get foreclosed on because you literally can't afford to refinance it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is how crazy it was. Probably maybe between like 8 to 12 months ago, there was a 2 month span where I cashed out, I think close to $300,000, and my properties were still cash flowing. And the main good reason for that was interest rates for those that refinances were 4.25%, whereas now they're 7.5%. So you're losing a lot of that cash flow. Even if you can cash out, you kind of don't want to unless you need the money. You don't want to because your cash flow is going to shrink
Right.
significantly.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like, are you buying these properties to make $100 in cash flow every month? Because I'm not trying to buy a property to make $100 in cash flow a month. Like,
Mhm.
it just that sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah.
I want that at least 3 to 500 plus a month as a buffer after I take into consideration some vacancy and capex and all that kind of stuff. And right now, if you're just buying to buy and you're a new investor, and you could get burned with
Yeah.
rentals right now.
And I just wanted to add this quickly. So when you're buying these properties, and let's say, we're satisfied between 3 to $500 in cash flow. Well, we also want to consider the age of that property and when it was last renovated,
Yeah.
because you know just as well as I do that, if you buy a house that maybe it's already rented out and everything is 15 years old, you can be cash flowing $500 a month, but issues are going to start popping up left and right. New water heater, new
Yep.
furnace. If the tenant doesn't change the filter in the furnace, you could get a ton of service calls, and then the furnace could go up. And then houses that I bought, and I'm starting to recognize this now, houses that I bought occupied that may have been dated, maybe they're 5 to 10 years dated, haven't been updated during that period. I want to keep those tenants in there, even if the rent is maybe $100 less than market, or maybe even $200 less than market, because if they move out, I know I'm going to have to put a lot more money into that property in particular that I would if I had already rehabbed the property and the tenant moved out. And it's just like a light little
Hmm.
cosmetic repairs to, a turnover at that point.
Yeah, that for us, like we've fully renovated and gutted most of our properties,
Hmm.
and I think that's really really crucial. And I see that in the property management side because the properties that we own get barely any service calls, and the properties that other people own that they either half-ass renovated, didn't do the furnace because it was working at the time, or didn't do the water heater because it was working at the time. Um, ignored the fact that everything was cast iron inside. Those people are getting charged a shit ton of money for all these repairs. So,
Hmm.
taking into consideration how old all of those mechanicals are and the plumbing and electric is super crucial in figuring out what a good cash flow is, because every time you send somebody out, a contract or something, you got to kiss away at least $125.
Hmm.
You're never going to send a subcontractor of any sort out and pay less than $125.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned that that's like the minimum fee to get them out. So if you have $300 in cash flow, that's still like only one or two, basically you have two service calls before the next one you're losing money.
Hmm.
So knowing what your property is like as far as condition and is very important. Um, and doing good walkthroughs, I think that's one thing. A lot of these properties that I inherit from other managers or just clients that are tired of managing it, they never do walkthroughs with their tenants. Like I went to I had an issue. A tenant couldn't log into our new payment system, so I physically went to her house and set her up with. I brought my laptop there. I set her up. And I just did like, hey, how's everything? Like I own this one. I don't just manage it. I own it too. And I was like, how is everything? And is there anything that's broken? And she's like, oh, well, this is like, this paint was peeling here, and just showing me little odds and ends around the house. And I think that's super important, just keeping up with what your properties look like, because
Mhm.
a lot of investors, especially ones that are, self-managing from afar, I think they never really get the opportunity to walk through their properties. And I think that could be a problem for them. Just then all of the stuff kind of builds up,
Yeah.
and then you get a $20,000 bill for all these repairs that you're not really prepared for.
Mhm.
So I think that's important. So this next one here about leveraging debt.
Yeah, so I put this here recognizing that I wasn't leveraging enough debt on the front end. So what I mean by that is, when you buy these properties, what I do is the Burr method. You generally get hard money or private money to purchase the property, and that includes the construction loan as well. And I like to be conservative. So let's say a house has an ARV of 180,000, like a Baltimore City townhouse. And these are like recent deals too. I would get a loan. I'll give you guys an example. If the purchase price was 59,000, and I got a construction loan for 41,000, so total loan amount was 100,000. ARV was 180, but I wasn't, and that's me being conservative to where like once I refinance it, I know that I'm not going to be in over my head to where I have to bring a lot of money to close. But after talking to a couple other investors, and it just makes more sense because when you're doing a lot of properties, I wanted to be conservative, but at the same time, you kind of run into like a cash flow jam to where now that your loan is up, you have $100,000, but then you put in 120. So if you do that on 5 properties, that's 100 grand out that you're not gonna that you have to be working and managing and just figuring out where all the missing pieces are going. Whereas if I would have just borrowed 120 from the jump from the hard money lender, then I could, I wouldn't have to figure out like where am I getting that extra $20,000 from across like 7 or 8 properties that are currently active. In addition to that, because of the lien certificates taking a long time, you also have to consider, your deposits that are out on some properties.
Yeah,
So
that's
all of the
absolutely true.
properties that I have under contract right now, all 7 are auction properties, and all of the auction properties I need to put 10% down. So that's a lot of money out in deposits as well. So like moving forward, what I want to do is just go up to the amount that I'm going to be comfortable with, and the amount that I can like take the ARV and take 75% of that, pay the lender back, cover my closing costs, and then just, walk away without having a lot of money out of my pocket until I refinance. Cause that kind of, you can run into like, uh, you know, cash flow problems, when you have a lot of properties that you're working on at once.
Yeah, having an idea of how many deposits you have out there is really is a real thing, because that money could be and should be returning you some sort of return, but really
Hmm.
it's not at that point.
Yeah.
It's just dead weight, and especially if you are somebody that's in real estate that's leveraged, and some of that deposit is potentially leveraged as well. So now you're actually paying interest on a 10, $20,000 deposit, and
Hmm.
now that deposit really cost you 25,000 or whatever, depending on how long it takes.
Yeah.
And some of these, short sales and they sometimes they take forever to close.
Yeah. And foreclosures. I mean, foreclosures can take 6 plus months.
Right.
So it's definitely, you have to consider that when you have a lot of deposits out there.
Yeah. And I think right now too, like, Nick, you're experienced at this point. You have a lot of money coming in to kind of cover some of that stuff. But for a new investor, like, you really want to be careful on how much stretch yourself,
Hmm.
when you might just have a regular job and you might make good money, but good money is really $10,000, like what, 10,000 bucks a month, clear. You're making good money, but one problem, you have still have to pay your mortgage, you still have to pay one major problem at that property, or the refinance comes in and you got to bring in a bunch of money. Like, some of these properties, you got to put down a lot of money, and if you don't have that in reserves, you're screwed. You're kind of
Hmm.
like, in a really bad situation. So just be careful on how much you actually are leveraging, to making sure that you just run your numbers properly, knowing, like you said, 75% of what you think the ARV is going to be, and maybe in the beginning, if you think the ARV is going to be 200, maybe run off of like 190.
Mhm.
Maybe just give yourself like,
Especially now with the market shifting, that's a great idea.
like a 5% buffer,
Mhm.
of some sort, just to be safe, and if you're somebody that's super seasoned and knows exactly what's going on, then great, you have your systems. But for new people, I think you really want to make sure that at the end of that bird deal, when you have to do the refinance, which is typically the hardest part for most people, you really, really need to know what that ARV is going to be and know that you have enough money to cover it if it comes in short.
Mhm.
Um, so the next thing that you have here, delegating tasks.
Yeah, so I was literally just thinking about this on the way over as we were adding to our sheet here, and I said the who, what, why, when, and how of delegating tasks. So like, the who is like who can you delegate a task to, whether it be a virtual assistant, admin on your staff, and then what, like what task are you delegating? For me, for example, water balancing out water bills on a lot of properties. That's a huge task. That's very tedious for me. It's very mentally draining for me. So like to be able to put my admin on that to manage that is the who. The why is, I don't want to deal with tedious tasks that aren't producing me any type of money. And then when. So it's not, when people think about delegating tasks, they may not know exactly when to do it. Um for me, it's like, you can do this from the beginning. You can own one rental property and delegate it, but then it's like you can delegate like if you're managing it yourself, you can delegate the water bill task. But like, do you really want to do that, or is it going to cost you more money than it's really worth? But
I,
when you have like a lot more, to delegate it,
I think you got
it's
to
it's
value
more.
your time, right? In the
Yeah.
beginning, I think this was like when we started. I'm sure it's the same for you. Tyler and I were doing everything. We were showing up to the service call first to see what it was, see if we could fix it, if it was something simple. We were wasting so much of our time, but at that time, we were just teachers and our time wasn't really worth all that much. Like
Hmm.
it would the gas it took to get there or whatever, and then the time that we would have been, you know, at the gym or doing something else, whatever, we just went and did that in the beginning. And then I think you start to value your time once you see how much money you can make in this industry, and you're like, oh wait, if I just took the amount of time to go look at the next property, that $100 it costed me to send somebody to go look at that service call is well worth it because I just made $10,000 by finding this property that we're
Hmm.
going to sell or flip or buy as a rental or whatever. um,
Yeah. So I would say if your schedule isn't full, maybe you can do those tasks yourself. But once your schedule becomes to the point to where it's like super full and you're starting to like go crazy, then you start to think like, you know what, these are the tasks that aren't making me any money. Let me start to delegate. So that's the when. And then the last thing is the how. Like how do you delegate these tasks? You can have a PowerPoint, couple PowerPoint presentation of how to do it, and you can give that to your admin, or you can just spend a couple days with them showing them exactly how you do it, and then maybe they can create their own way of doing that task the way that they feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to think about too, it's like it's okay not to know how to do everything and just leveraging people's time. And most people appreciate you leveraging their time because that means that they're going to be paid, right? For me, I'm a real estate agent. I am technically, I guess Tyler's technically the lead of the team, but I literally could not even write you up a contract if you had said without any help and you just said, Ryan, take this computer and write up a contract properly, or I wouldn't be able to do it. But the people on my team do know how to do it, and I rely on them to do that. And it works out because they get paid and I get paid. And it's something that it would take me probably 4 times the time that it
Mhm.
took them to do the same exact task. I will pay for that because in that time, I have talked to new clients. I have put something up on social media. I've marketed myself in some way. Whatever it is, the time that it took not only for them to do that, I would have had to learn how to do that and then not been good at it for a while doing that task. So it was just like the delta of missed time and opportunity is just too great to not
Mhm.
just pass that along to somebody else.
Yep.
The bookkeeping we're talking about, like
Mhm.
you are not a good bookkeeper. So you got to just pass that along to somebody, and I think the what is makes it easier to like when we hire a new person, it's tough because you're like, wow, this is another 70 plus $1,000 a year in overhead. But if you think about it in like well, what's the actual loss on that person if they find you 5% of your money that you didn't know was being spent at something stupid?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can easily probably recoup, 4, 5, 6% just by hiring and delegating a specific person to do your bookkeeping for you.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you do a couple $1,000,000 and you just paid for their whole
Mm-hmm.
salary. So I think, when kind of, but you need to hire before you really need somebody, because then you're scrambling to find that person. And maybe it's not hiring a new employee, maybe it's just subcontracting out, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I can find somebody to pay them to go through the water bills if I can't afford to have an employee to do that. So in the beginning, maybe just finding somebody, training them, making a video on how to do it. Say, hey, I'll give you $100 a month if you do this water bill for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way for new investors or new business owners to kind of get tasks done. Fiverr, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I like local people. I like using local people, and I think that's a good way to delegate.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll wrap things up here, but we have a couple of things. We got our event on the 26th, right? And next year, 2023, we're going to be looking for sponsors. Um, so if you were interested and you want to be a sponsor of the show, you want to be used in our advertising, contact us. You can contact me at ryan@pepropertymanagement.com. Nick, your email. I don't know your email.
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to us on social media
Yeah.
and
Instagram.
let us know if you're interested in that. And everyone, we're gonna have that event January 26th. We'd love to see everyone there. It'll be a fun night.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good new year, and see you next time.